Hello there, BookTube. My name is Nathan, and I am the Rambling Reviewer. I call myself that because, well, I tend to ramble in these videos. And, well, sometimes I review things. And, I'm doing a tag today. I was watching a bit of BookTube, and I saw that Fred, at Read by Fred, did a tag. It was, Why Haven't I Read Tag? And, he was tagged by another Bibliophile Reads, which I think might have been the person who originally created it. Let me just double check that because it was right in. I'm just kind of clicking back to make sure I'm correct about that. If it's in his description. But in it he talks about. Yes, it was originally created by another Bibliophile Reads. And the tag is just 6 questions, correlating. The 6th one is the tag question, obviously, and the 5 are different kinds of books and things you haven't read in those books, and why you haven't read them. And the key is to have stuff that you own. For one of these books, I don't own them, because I owned it for a while and then I got rid of it, because it was like staring me in the face, and at least for me, it's kind of a bad habit of mine to buy way too many books and then feel anxious, and that actually really poorly impacts my own reading. It is still something I want to read, but I figured if I want to read it at some point, I would just check it out from the library and then rebuy it. But I'm gonna jump in, and that first book, that one which I got rid of, is the classic book, which is the first question, which is why haven't I read this classic? And that is Les Miserables. I've wanted to read Les Miserables ever since watching a movie that was released back in 2012, I believe. I've always liked musicals. I spent time as an actor in a youth musical group. And Les Mis is one of my favorite musicals. And so I've always wanted to read the book. Why I haven't read it and why I held on to it for so long and didn't read it, big reason is, of course, the size of the thing. And I actually had the chance back in 2022, towards the beginning of the year, a bunch of booktubers, including Christy Lewis and a musical bookworm, Victoria, read Les Mis. And I said I was going to read it, and then I started it, read the first chapter, and then stopped. Not because I didn't enjoy it, but because I ended up reading other things, which is unfortunately another bad habit of mine, and a habit that I'm trying to break this year. Which is over trying to read too many things at once. Number 2. The rest of these I do actually have. Number 2 is a fiction book that you haven't read, and this actually does fit for another topic in here. But I'm going to talk about it as the fiction book, and that is Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. So, this was something that I wanted to read because, again, several booktubers, Christy Lewis and Victoria at a musical bookworm included, read the Stormlight Archive books back in 2020, and I read them along, and I really, really enjoyed them. Got really connected to the characters, and then I pre-ordered Rhythm of War as a term of the year, and the year went by, and I kept deciding, okay, I'll read it now, and never actually did. And it's probably one of the single biggest books that have been staring me in the face for a while. But unlike the Les Miserables, I know I want to read it. It's not just because it's a classic, it's because I actually really enjoyed the book so far, so. I do have some tentative plans to read this in the future. My hope is to read this maybe January, although I don't know if that'll work, because I'm reading Count of Monte Cristo with Chris and with Chris Elton at Unlimited Reads, and with Scott at Bush Bryant, and with Sean at Sean D. Standfast, and maybe also with Brandy at the Booklectic. And I expect that is a massive, massive book. And I expect that it will be, the classic, so fairly dense. I don't think it's going to be super dense. I've heard it's supposed to be a really just gripping story, but probably at least denser than this. But because I know that I've read his writing before, and I know that when I read it, it goes by extremely, extremely quickly, I might shove this in as a book to read in January. I've not decided yet, though. Oh no, I'm actually misremembering. My thoughts was I was going to reread the entirety of the Stormlight archive to read up to this. So I might read Way of Kings in January, but I've not decided yet. And then for Les Mis, I also have, it's been talked about in a few Voxer groups, hypothetical, or intended, reading a group, I think, of Les Miserables, and I've talked about that with a few different people. I don't really know if they're all linking up for the one reading group of Les Mis, but if they are, I might want to join that also to get that off my list. Now, why haven't I read this nonfiction book? For this, I chose another book that I started and then never finished, which was Abigail Adams by Woody Holton. This is a biography of the First Lady, the second First Lady actually, Abigail Adams. And I read David McCullough's John Adams about 3 years ago. Really, really enjoyed it. Picked this up shortly after. Started reading it, read about the first 100 pages or so, and then got distracted by other stuff. So, why haven't I read it? Lack of discipline. I still have it though, and I've been wanting to read it for a very, very long time. So, this is high up on the list, also in the new year, but I don't really know when I'm going to get to it. Why haven't you read this genre book? I have The Summer Night by Jim Butcher. I started reading the Dresden Files last year, around around June, I think. June or July. Read the first two. Oh no, this is the wrong one. Grave Peril was actually the one I meant to hold up. This is the fourth book. I read the first two, which were Stormfront and Full Moon. The third book was Grave Peril, and I started reading that one again. Didn't get too far into it. Set it aside, didn't get back to it, so that's that one. And then the final book, which is a book I've owned the longest time. I don't actually know what that book would be. In fact, I haven't owned this particular book for a very long time, but it's been in my household forever, since I was a kid. And it belonged to my father. And, luckily this is a particular book that I do have definitive plans to read in the new year. And that is Lord of the Rings. I read The Hobbit, and, am rereading The Hobbit right now, and I'm really enjoying it. So, but I never did read Lord of the Rings. And again, I did start this one, although I started when I was like 10, and got annoyed by the long, dense prose. But in the new year, I don't remember the exact month, I am planning on finally reading The Lord of the Rings. So that's the books I have. At least with several of them, Lord of the Rings, Rhythm of War, and Les Miserables, I have fairly definitive plans on when I want to read them. For Grave Peril, it's short, so it doesn't really need a definitive plan. I don't know about Abigail Adams, though. But the final question is, of course, to tag people. And I don't know who's all done this, so I'm going to tag several different people. I'm going to tag Brandy at the Booklectic. I'm going to tag the Bush Bryants, Scott and Becky. I'm going to tag Quentin at Idget Reads and Rambles. I'm going to tag Sean to Stand Fast, who I'm sure he's done this already, and I'm going to tag Roy at Roy Reads Anything. So yeah, and if I don't tag you and you're interested, feel free to do this. I'd love to hear what books you haven't read and what books make you feel guilty. But I hope you're having a great day, BookTube. Bye.